Well, it's May 4th. It's 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. My name is Eric Button. I am a proud alumni of Burning Tree, and I do family support work for us and business development. And we're honored to have you on today or watching this show. Burning Tree is a family-owned organization that's been around since 1999. David Elliott found us then. We started off with a long-term residential program outside of Dallas in Kaufman, Texas, called Burning Tree Ranch. Burning Tree Ranch works with men and women, what you would clarify as chronic relapsers, have had many attempts at sobriety and have failed. The ranch average length of stay is anywhere from 8 to 14 months of residential with a year of transitions. Then in 2004, Mr. Elliott founded Burning Tree Ranch, which about 2 years ago has been rebranded as Renewal Lodge by Burning Tree. Renewal Lodge is an in-network co-ed treatment facility, 30, 60, or 90 days, has a huge component of active recovery, has a mindfulness approach to the 12 steps with a high level of clinical services and psychiatric. The newest to our family at Burning Tree is Awakenings Hill Country. Awakenings Hill Country is outside of the San Antonio Hill Country area of Fredericksburg. Awakenings Hill Country is headed up by Jessica and Josh Slay with the assistance of Burning Tree. And then we have a young adult with the collegiate track program in Tucson, Arizona. And that program is called Burning Tree West. So on Burning Tree Program Spotlight today, we have Mr. John Sakacs. And Mr. John Sakacs has been and is currently with Betty Ford Hazelden, and he lives in California. And John, I want to welcome you to Burning Tree Spotlight.
Eric, thank you so much. And for those that care about my last name, it's Sakacs, but that's okay. It's all
so thank you for correcting me, Mr. Sakacs.
This afternoon, I should say.
Yeah. So Gary Kaufman, our business development rep who travels around the country, Gary alerted us that he would like to do spotlight on Betty Ford, Hazelden, and yourself. So I want to ask, how did you meet Gary Kaufman?
He was stalking me, and I had to get a restraining order on him. No, I'm kidding. I met him when I was in Dallas in March. My God, it seems like 12 years ago, and it was only a little over a month ago. And he was just introduced to me by my friend Lisa Henson at the TAP meeting.
Yeah.
And we just hit it off right away. And again, we just so appreciate working with Burning Tree because you guys just love the long-term care and engagement model that we're also very big fans of.
Well, thank you. Thank you. So Betty Ford in Palm Desert, when was Betty Ford opened?
1982, Mrs. Ford established the Betty Ford Center. About 6 years ago, we did merge with Hazelden out of Minnesota, which has been in business since 1949. So we're now officially known as the largest nonprofit treatment organization in the country under the name of Hazelden Betty Ford.
Okay. And I know that Betty Ford campus is also on Eisenhower grounds, the big hospital there. Is that right?
Exactly, and we're so fortunate to have that partnership with them. In fact, just going back to Mrs. Ford and how it all started, she really didn't enjoy the intervention she had at a federal facility, and she was talking to a lot of her friends at Eisenhower, and they said, well, if you think you can do a better job, why don't you start your own facility? And they gave her 20 beautiful acres right on the same campus as Eisenhower Medical Center. And that's how we got our start out there. And it's really great to have them basically on the same campus. So anyone that has a higher level emergency care they may need, they're just a few hundred yards away from Eisenhower. So it's been a great relationship.
Well, I know that Betty Ford has helped many of my friends and acquaintances get onto a path of recovery. And I just want to ask you, how did you come about having the opportunity to be a part of the Hazelden Betty Ford family?
Oh, great question, Eric. Thank you so much for asking. I was working with an organization called Twin Town Treatment Centers in California. And I was approached by someone at Hazelden, and I made the foolish mistake of saying, "Go away, I don't want to be bothered. I'm happy where I am." And that lasted about a month. And I came to my senses saying, wait a minute, I could work for the one of the premier addiction treatment facilities in the country. And so I listened, and the more I listened, the more I liked it. And it's obviously been the best decision I've ever made. And I just really do love the organization.
Well, I like hearing the reason why you chose to hook your wagon to the Hazelden Betty Ford is the fact of their incredible heritage and length of helping people. I mean, Hazelden started, what'd you say, in 1949?
Yeah, we've been doing this 71 years. I think we're getting pretty good at it.
Yeah.
It's really, Eric, it was interesting to me to read a lot of the earlier books on the AA movement and how closely aligned it has been with the formation of Hazelden, and how close we almost came in the early years of not keeping it together as an organization. I mean, originally we were going to be offering solutions just for the priests. And then that kind of came and went. And then all of a sudden it almost blew up because the folks who started AA didn't want to let anyone else in other than lay people to deal with groups, and one alcoholic talking to another. And the idea of, God forbid, a medical professional like a psychologist or therapist talking to a group almost blew up our early creation at Hazelden. So we had a lot of things happen that thankfully didn't happen, and we survived the early years. And God forbid, we even decided about talking about treating women in the 50s. That almost blew up Hazelden. And it's nice to see that we've been able to overcome some of the earlier ignorance and really just be able to treat a lot of people over the years and offer great treatment.
Well, John, I've always been impressed with Betty Ford, Hazelden, but Betty Ford was really one of the premier, and continues to be one of the premier of engaging their alumni that have gone through the program. How are things going with that continued process? The alumni, they have what do they call them? Regional alumni around the country. Is that right?
Yeah, they do. It used to be more vibrant, Eric. They used to have more dinners, more get-togethers. Right now, we've got a large network of alumni. And what's really great is when someone is about to leave our campus and move back to their home state, they're plugged in to the local AA community or whatever community they want to be plugged into through our alumni network.
Yeah.
So it's still very, very strong. We utilize that because it gives folks a way to stay connected after they leave us. And what I really love is we've got a program called MORE, My Ongoing Recovery Experience.
Uh-huh.
One of the ladies at Betty Ford Center, she's led the charge with this to where we're able, like Burning Tree, to keep the engagement strong when they leave treatment. So we not only connect them with our alumni, but we offer free recovery coaches for life, as well as an aftercare program. And that's all provided free of charge to everyone that comes to see us at any level.
So this extended engagement with the alumni, why is that vital?
Well, as you know, treatment for addiction, it's, you can't cure a chronic disease in 28 days. And we all know that have been doing this for a while, that it takes long-term engagement, especially those critical months after they leave treatment.
Yeah.
And what we do is, upon admission, we allow them into a portal that gives them hundreds of hours of resources and videos on all kinds of topics, like how do I stay sober in the early months? How do I date sober? How do I do anything sober? And it's been utilized by large organizations like the U.S. Navy when they came to us 10 years ago saying we can't keep our sailors sober when they're deployed and they lose their home group. We basically have taken that program and offered it for free to all of our clients that come to us. And it's one of our most successful programs. The outcomes just shoot through the roof when you can keep folks engaged longer, as you know, and then add in our alumni who are getting on the phones as recovery coaches. Anytime they want a patient wants to pick up the phone feeling a little bit squirrely, they can pick up the phone and call a recovery coach. And again, it's free for life. So I'm really happy with the long-term engagement aspect of what we're doing.
And you call that program MORE?
Yeah, my ongoing recovery experience.
I like that. I like
Yep,
that.
And it was, again, by our publishing division originally started and created the product. And I think you mentioned our publishing earlier, and I'm happy to talk to you about what they're doing as well as
Please talk to us about your publishing arm.
Well, it's funny because it originally started with the early days at Hazelden. It was someone just scratching notes down, and you know, they basically were sketching notes down, and that became the foundation of the Hazelden Publishing arm. We went and they originally just Xerox copies and sent out the copies to people that would call in saying, I need some material. And that just grew into a large publishing organization where we have all of our resources. You know, the day at a time, the Daily Pledge is an online resource. We've got 4 award-winning apps on the phone right now that we're giving away for free that people can use to be engaged on a daily basis. So they've done a lot of great work, and especially during the shutdown here, whatever we can do to keep folks more engaged is working really well.
Yeah. So the publishing, the Hazelden Publishing piece is still, they're still printing hard books and tangible things that can be printed off on paper, but then they put all of this on digitally, where you can get online for online books. Is that right?
Absolutely. We also have the graduate school for addiction. A lot of people forget about that. That falls under the Hazelden umbrella as well, where people can go and get an online education and degree. We can do it in person as well, but not these days. And we also have a great group, an advocacy group that does nothing but work with the Congress and the Senate and the measures up on the Hill to get some good legislation passed that makes more sense for treatment facilities.
I bet there was no one better to go to Capitol Hill with than Mrs. Ford.
It's funny you brought that. Early on, our greatest marketing, before we even had marketing people in the early years at Betty Ford, for those of us old enough to remember, her marketing plan was she would go on Larry King's show. We would hire 100 receptionists, and we would be full for 2 years, just on one interview with Larry King. And she had a lot of weight, and she was a powerhouse for a woman small in stature. She brought a lot of power, and her first big push was for breast cancer awareness before she had the courage to come out and talk about her own addiction to alcohol and pills.
Mm-hmm.
She was a wonderful woman.
Well, I know that she was and continues to be an example of what freedom is all about. So I want to also shift a little bit and hear about Betty Ford and Hazelden, what you guys do to help the family. And then I want to talk about 5-Star Kids.
Absolutely. Obviously, the family has been a very big component, and I think we're one of the first to really recognize that and devise a plan. Excuse me. We actually have a plan where we get the families involved early on and let them know about the disease. and how to set boundaries and how to deal with someone new in sobriety. We offer that as a free service as well as the children's program, which is one of my favorite programs. Mrs. Ford wanted to stop the spread of this disease from generation to generation. And she said, you know what, if we could get 7 to 12-year-olds and talk to them about their mother, father, older siblings' disease, in terms of it's a disease and the kids did not start it, they weren't responsible for it. They don't have the skills to stop it, even if they were, and they're not alone. Those are like the 3 big messages we want to get across to them. It's a 4-day program with over 24 hours of session time. And it's so powerful because at the end, the kids can go and put their mother, father, older sibling, whoever it is, in the middle of a circle of chairs and talk to them one-on-one on how their parents or older siblings' addiction has affected them without breaking that parent-child bond relationship. And it's a wonderful thing. And they're given an 800 number as well, where they can call it until they're 18 years old to have their own little community. I love the program.
So 5-star Kids, you have, of course, the main campus is there at Betty Ford Center there in Palm Springs. And then you have one in Denver. Yes. And then you have one at the Hazelden up in Minnesota. Is that right?
At our Center City campus outside of Minneapolis. That's correct.
Okay. And let me think. There was something else I wanted to ask you. Oh, how has it changed for you during this time of COVID? How has things changed for what you get to provide, Betty Ford and Hazelden, as far as connecting with professionals in the field?
Great question. Obviously, life has changed for everyone. I certainly have been spending more time alone in the office, on Zoom meetings, on the phone, and I so miss that personal connection, that face-to-face connection, which I just love so much. I think all of us in outreach really enjoy the interaction we get when we're with people. It's been an adjustment, but what's really nice, Eric, is we made a decision a year ago to really put our money into the virtual world. And we partnered with one of our insurance partners in California to really do a beta test for virtual IOP. And so we had a whole year before this virus outbreak of fine-tuning our program, of finding the secure platform which would work best, that was HIPAA compliant, VFR 42 Part 2 compliant, as well as offering it to our patients where it's an easy process, where it's an interactive dashboard, where we could do things that other people just starting a Zoom meeting overnight couldn't do or know about. So we were well prepared for it, and it helped us work out a lot of the bugs that I think a lot of people are experiencing right now. So we're able to offer the IOP virtually, the PHP. Believe it or not, we're doing family. We're even doing the children's program virtually. So we made a huge conversion. I think within 3 days, we moved over 1,300 patients of ours that were in brick and mortar IOP over to the virtual IOP over the course of 3 days. So we were positioned very well, and we're very fortunate with the timing of it that we put that year into it before the virus hit. So
there again, another example of Hazelden Betty Ford being at the forefront, cutting edge, so to say, kind of like it was back in the 40s, right? When they printed stuff off, they Xeroxed papers and then mailed them to people, and then that's what started the Hazelden Publishing.
Yeah, isn't that something? And again, I can't tell you how great it is to partner up with organizations like you and Burning Tree, who really get the long-term engagement part and how important that is to increase outcomes. You guys have always done such a great job with that. And I love being aligned philosophically and also just watching the great clinical work your team does. and being able to partner with guys like you. And, I think you need to partner to prosper these days. And if you can find like-minded organizations, we can all make a bigger impact that way.
Well, I'm feeling nostalgic, and I've got one little story I want to tell you.
Please.
So Burning Tree is founded by a gentleman named David Elliott. Well, David Elliott got sober at a long-term program in Arizona called Eagle Crest. And Eagle Crest started in the early 90s by a lady named Gail Standen and her husband. Well, Gail had this idea, and she wanted to help people in long-term engagement in treatment and treat their alcoholism and their drug addiction and utilize the steps. So she needed to find some clients. So what did she do? She scratched down some stuff on a piece of paper, had the Kinko's or something back in the day, make her like a brochure. And then she went out to Betty Ford and she camped out until she got to talk to the doctors. And she got to talk to the doctors. And then a few weeks later, she started receiving some clients that needed more than what they were getting at Betty Ford. And it started, and I just, when you were talking to me about, the history of Betty Ford and all that, it took me back to Gail, and I wanted to mention her to you and just add to the story. And I can't thank you enough, John, for you, Betty Ford, and Hazelden. And please, when you see Mr. Jeff Schlund, when you can, give him a hug for me, would you?
I will absolutely do that. And Eric, again, if there's anything we can do to, as you know, we've got a bunch of resources available. We've been doing this a long time. And if people go to hazeldenbettyford.org, they can certainly find almost any information you need to make your own treatment center more vibrant. And I'm a phone call away as well at 310-908-9198. I'm here to help people get sober, and whatever that looks like, I'm here.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being on Burning Tree Program Spotlight. Well, thank you, Hazelden Betty Ford, and thank you, Burning Tree, for giving me an opportunity to spotlight another organization and another person in this battle against addiction and drug and alcoholism. So, Burning Tree program has been around since 1999. We have 4 programs. Burning Tree Ranch, which is for the 8 to 14 month residential client that needs long-term treatment with a year of transitions. We have Renewal Lodge by Burning Tree, which is an in-network provider outside of Austin and Elgin, Texas, with a clinically advanced mindfulness approach to the 12 steps. Newest to the Burning Tree program, I'm going to reiterate, Jessica and Josh Slay. Their program is called Awakenings Hill Country. It is women helping women. They're an in-network provider also. And then our young adult program, which is in Tucson, Arizona, about 1.5 miles east of the University of Arizona campus, young adult program, Burning Tree West, and it has a college track. So, honored Burning Tree Spotlight. We'll see you tomorrow.